Testing.
Yeah, it is. They're off. Yeah. Okay, are they presentation? Are they doing this whole thing? No. I think this is just okay.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the Coatesville Area School District School Board meeting for Tuesday, April 25th, 2023. Agenda item 1B, reading of the mission statement. The mission of the Coatesville Area School District, rich in diversity and committed to excellence, is to create innovative educational experiences which are funded by the taxpayers, supported by the community, delivered by dedicated teachers and administrators to ensure all students will become responsible, contributing global citizens. Agenda item 1C, advisement. By notice of the President, board members are advised that all votes shall be regarded as roll call votes. The minutes should also note that public notice was given for this meeting in accordance with Act 93 of 1998, Section 1. School board meetings shall proceed in accordance with school board policy. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Rob Fisher.
Here.
Harvell Brown.
Here.
Brandon Roan.
Mr. Roan is to be excused this evening.
Holly Charest.
Here.
Andrew Finkbonner.
Here.
Becky Harlan.
Ms. Harlan is to be excused this evening also.
Mary Ann Harris. Here. Amelia Mills.
Ms. Mills is to be excused this evening.
Jennifer Schott.
Here.
Allison Trivert. Isabella Imburgia.
She's to be excused as well.
Thank you.
At this time, could we all stand as we have a moment of silence and then a salute to the flag. Color Guard, present the colors. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Agenda item number 2. For my colleagues, are there any additions, deletions, or modifications to this evening's agenda? Additions, deletions, or modifications to this evening's agenda? Seeing none, we will move on to agenda item 3A, approval of the minutes. Recommended motion that the Board of School Directors approve the minutes for the March 28, 2023 school board meeting subject to any additions, deletions, modifications, or clarifications. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Jennifer Schott.
Yes.
Andrew Finkbeiner.
Yes.
Rob Fisher.
Yes.
Holly Charisse.
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris.
Yes.
Marvell Brown.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Agenda item 3B, approval of the minutes. Recommended motion that the Board of School Directors approve the minutes for the April 11, 2023 special school board meeting subject to any additions, deletions, modifications, or clarifications. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, call for the vote, please.
Marvell Brown.
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris.
Yes.
Rob Fisher.
Yes.
Andrew Finkbeiner.
Yes.
Jennifer Schott.
Yes.
Holly Charisse.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Agenda item 4A, public comment on agenda items. The board has requested all persons making comments on agenda items to list their name, address, telephone number, and motion items on the sheet provided. There is a 3-minute limit per person. The board does not take action or discuss items not appearing on the agenda. The board values public comments and wishes to convey that although board members cannot discuss items that are not on the agenda, they listen carefully and appreciate and value input from the public. Ms. Lori Shannon Bailey.
Good evening. My first questions will address the master facilities plan, and specifically, I had mentioned this a couple of board meetings ago, but in terms of our finances, I'm really nervous about the decisions that you all will make, because I'm just concerned about the overall financial commitment. I'm not sure when you all will be making a decision, but some of the guiding priorities that the task force agreed upon. Just a reminder, the facilities plan must be focused on helping the district save money on operating costs. The plan must geographically defend against charter school locations. The plan must reconfigure the grade structure to better meet educational needs. The plan must fit the school board's ability to fund the improvements within the current Act 1 taxing authority and not force them to go to a voter referendum for additional funding. The facilities plan must not reduce the district's investment in the other three pillars of their strategy to improve academic achievement, finances, and climate. And as a first priority, the plan must address the critical infrastructure system within buildings, ensuring that all buildings are able to keep students and staff safe, warm, and dry. Just a reminder of what you all were told back in February. My next questions will address the budget that we're going to hear about later on this evening. I'm somewhat nervous about the continuation of teacher resignations. We had 7 teacher resignations during the month of, on the 14th of March, and I know that you all announced at the last board meeting that you are hiring teachers. I'm pleased with that. I'm really concerned about the number of special education teachers that have resigned. And so as you all make decisions about the budget and raising our taxes, please be mindful of the need, the challenges of our special education department. Please be mindful of the need to replace the special education teachers that we have lost due to resignations and or retirement. Please be mindful of the 3-year improvement plan that we are on as a result of the 2019 special education audit. And then finally, regarding the CCIU budget that you will be voting on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon Bailey. Moving on to agenda item 5A, executive session. Executive session was held on April 10th, 2023 and April 24th, 2023 for legal and personnel reasons. Student representatives report. Ms. Shivert.
My name is Allie Shivert, and I am the senior class representative. I would like to start my report by sharing an annual tradition that recently occurred within our campus. The JROTC Military Ball was held on Saturday, April 15th, 2023. In addition to numerous cadets earning local and national awards, the seniors were all given their call signs. Brandon Schilling, who served as Mr. Vice during the military ball, was voted Mr. AFJROTC, and Ashley Menace was voted Miss AFJROTC. I will now discuss some exciting upcoming events here on campus. The junior prom will be held on Saturday, April 28th in the Cash Cafeteria from 6:30 to 9:30 p.m. This year's theme is a Ruby Soiree. The juniors are excited to celebrate this milestone, which will feature dancing and a dinner with a pasta bar. The Coatesville Area Senior High School senior class is hosting an upcoming senior sunrise on Friday, May 5th to celebrate National College Decision Day. Seniors are invited to meet on the turf in the stadium for conversation and fellowship. Way to go, seniors, and good luck in the future. The Cash campus is pleased to welcome Special Olympics, which will be held on Friday, May 5th at the Coatesville Area Memorial Stadium, Red Raider Field. This is such a wonderful and well-attended event. Good luck to all of the participants. The music department is pleased to announce their spring concert series. Please come out and join the vocal music department and the orchestra for a concert on Friday, May 12th at 7 p.m. in the auditorium. The instrumental music program will host the annual spring concert on Friday, May 19th at 6 p.m., also in the Cash Auditorium. Now to share some of our recent and upcoming academic successes. The AP Government classes participated in the Constitutional Ambassadors Program at the National Constitution Center last week. Students received a surprise when they got to meet and speak with the U.S. Attorney Jacqueline C. Romero for the Eastern District of Pennsylvania. She was appointed by Joe Biden and works directly for the U.S. Attorney General, Merrick Garland. She spoke about her role in the Justice Department and was really excited and encouraged about how much our students knew and how engaged they were when speaking with her. We would like to wish all of our students that will be participating in AP testing over the next 2 weeks the best of luck. We know you will do great and earn your college credit. We would also like to wish good luck to all of the students taking the Keystone Assessments in May. Once again, the Cache campus has been chosen as a filming location. During the back-to-school advertising season, be sure to keep a lookout for the Five Below commercial, which will feature our campus. What an exciting thing. As we are quickly approaching mid-markings for the fourth and final marking period, we encourage all students to stay focused and remember that the year will be over before you know it. Thank you. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Allison. So, Allison, we down to under 30 days now?
I think it's like 28.
But you're not counting, right?
I don't really have time to count.
I'm sure you'll be a part of the AP exams. We wish you well with those. A little birdie also shared with me that you have made your college decision. Would you like to share with the audience where you'll be matriculating in the fall?
Sure. In the fall, I'll be attending Penn State University.
And majoring?
I'll be majoring in advertising and public relations with a minor in sports studies.
Very impressive. You
Thank
can
you.
root for the Penn State football team for every game except Michigan. Thank you, Allison. Moving on to agenda item 7A, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Van Voorn.
Good evening, school board members and community members. For tonight's superintendent report, I would like to highlight one of our youth mentoring partnerships, Got Grit. This program focuses on prevention and intervention programs, building strong, protective mentoring relationships, developing social and emotional learning skills, and identifying the mental, behavioral, and physical health needs of our students. I had the pleasure of joining Senator Carolyn Comita a couple of weeks ago at a session that took place at North Brandywine Middle School. She and I went into a physical education class where the social and emotional learning curriculum pilot primarily takes place in partnership with our teachers. Within that class, students were greeted by the mentors to have an individual conversation to get class started, and then took part in warm-up activities together. Eventually, this led to team-building activities, which all the students loved. Although the Youth Mentorship Program did come and speak at an earlier board meeting this year, I wanted to thank them for their ongoing support of our students during PE classes, as well as coaching our sports teams and providing transformational leadership development activities. I would also like to thank one of our school board members, Jennifer Schott, for her recent donation. Mrs. Schott applied and was awarded a grant through Penn Medicine, which provides feminine hygiene products for young women in low-income areas. Those supplies have been distributed across our schools, so we thank her for that. Lastly, I'd like to highlight and congratulate our 6th grade Reading Olympic team who recently competed at TCHS. Our students earned 49 points and several red ribbons. And congratulations to their advisor, Mrs. Capter, and our Reading Olympic team for all of their hard work and extra reading this school year. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Van Voorn. Moving on to agenda item 7B, important dates. May 9th, 2023, 6 o'clock p.m., all committees and special meeting, Coatesville Area Senior High School Auditorium. May 23rd, 2023, 6 o'clock p.m., school board meeting, Coatesville Area Senior High School Auditorium. Moving on to special reports, Kings Highway Elementary School. Dr. Miles.
Good evening, school board members, community members, and Dr. Warren. For those of you who do not know me, I'm Dr. Miles, the enthusiastic and energetic It fills my heart with extreme gratitude for the opportunity to present just a piece of the greatness that is happening at Kings Highway. If time were available, I could tell you the awesomeness of our PBIS system regarding the climate of our school. I could tell you about how our MTSS framework is working so very well in all of our classrooms. I could also tell you about the wonderful growth of our students' academic prowess in Lexia and IXL, and how they have totally immersed themselves in the new open court curriculum. But because I can show you better than I can tell you, I would like to first present to you a student-led academic demonstration of what we do at Kings Highway. Board members, Dr. Van Barn, if you can please come down and have a seat in the front. Our fifth grade STEM students and our STEM teacher, Mrs. Elizabeth Bennett, is going to show you a demonstration that our students have worked on throughout this spring.
I'm Mrs. Bennett. I'm actually going to turn it right over to two of our incredible fifth graders, Ian and Mackenzie. They put together a presentation for you about what we've been doing in STEM, and then we're going to get into a demonstration.
Hi, my name is Ian Porter, and I'm a fifth grader at Kings Highway Elementary School. We are going to tell you a little bit about what we are learning about robotics and what we are doing in our STEM Design Challenge. The Design Challenge was to move 3 blocks from the hazardous waste side to the drop-off zone with a remote control robot. The blocks represent toxic waste. The most common modification between all the groups was adding a fork-like cloud to the front to catch the blocks and push them to the edge.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie Studer from Kings Highway Elementary School. For me, the most difficult part of fixing the robot was having to find and assemble the right parts. My group had to reassemble and assemble the robot a few times because we didn't put the pieces together. Each step was challenging in a different way. Our group was finally successful because we reassembled it multiple times, and that gave us more ideas to put into our robot.
For my group, the first part of building the vehicle was the easiest, where we all made a simple remote control vehicle from a 3D model online. The hardest part was when we had to modify the vehicle to move the toxic waste out of the disaster site. At first, the attachment we put on the front of our vehicle kept falling off and scraping on the ground. So we added multi-directional wheels on the plow for stability.
The controller and sensors act as input devices. The right thumbstick controls the middle right wheel's spinning direction, and the left thumbstick controls the left middle wheel's spinning direction. The robot car uses sensors by having to detect when the acid or red blocks are under the robot so it can not run over it or into it.
The vehicle has a sensor on the front that detects anything that's red and shuts down the vehicle when activated. The sensor added to the challenge because red chemical puddles were scattered all around the site, which made it difficult to receive the blocks.
The next step for my group are trying to create an autonomous robot that we do not have to control or touch. We will have to program the robot so it can drive on its own. Something that I have learned about robotics is that not all electronics are robots. Most people will not agree with that. Like a dishwasher will not be a robot to me, but will be to some other people.
And I learned that different robots specialize in different jobs and make our everyday lives easier.
We would like to thank Dr. Miles and the school board, Mrs. Bennett, for teaching us great things about robotics.
demonstrate how we collected the blocks and completed the job. That just goes to show teamwork makes the dream work. Next, I would like to publicly debut our Kings Highway Dance Team, which came about through a PBIS brainstorming session about developing student leaders and enhancing student engagement with our students. So now, girls, come on, Kings Highway Dance Team.
Ready? Hopefully it it up.
And I never overthink it, do what I want, and I do it my way. And I never try too hard, I'm so awesome, so effortlessly. Watch me take some notes, cause I'm confident and I get it done. I speak for the ones who do it best, that's right, my generation. That's right, that's right, that's right, my generation. That's right, that's right, that's right, my generation. Yeah, we're all about a good time. Yeah, we're all about a good life. You won't believe it till you see. This is gonna be a fun ride. Yeah, we're all about a good time. Yeah, we're all about a good life. Good energy, come follow me. Oh, it's gonna be a good night. That's right, that's right, that's right, my generation. That's right, that's right, that's right, my generation. Take a second, catch your breath if you need to, that's okay. Life in the fast track is where I live, this is my everyday. We never slow down, we never gonna stop, we never gonna take a break. We live the life we wanna live, that's mine. Yeah, we're all about a good life.
Can we give him another round of applause? As you all know, it's difficult to perform from a lot of people. We just did this one time at the school, very proud of us. I just want to take this time first to thank Shannon Hoover, who definitely has been helped to routine here. She has volunteered, her girls have all volunteered willingly to come and work with our girls at Kings Highway. And I'm so thankful for them for sharing their time with us. I appreciate everything that you guys have done today. So thank you very much. And you can have a round of applause. As well as, being the principal at Kings Highway, I have to have very enthusiastic and very energetic, so I'm always trying to produce leaders in our school. And, a lot of times you see students who are shy or, they're running, and I just try to get them to blossom. And Gianna here is very shy, and here has to come get her. So we make sure that she gets that opportunity to open up and blossom into a wonderful leader that I know she's going to be. And she is our team captain for the dance group. So we thank her for her time that she's gone around and really made sure that the girls were on time, made sure the girls knew when the rehearsals were going to be, and was helping me to be, get the girls all ready to go and be ready to prepare for what they need. So thank you very much, Jan. I appreciate y'all. And lastly, I have a presentation. I'm going to read a couple of things that I have here from a couple of teachers, or groups of teachers here. One from Thora Schlosser, special ed teacher at Kings Highway. And it reads, Dr. Miles has 2 rules for teachers at Kings Highway. Rule number 1 is, love your kids. Rule number 2 is, do your job. Carol certainly follows rules. Rule number 2, she is diligent about completing her special education paperwork, and she makes sure her math students are learning. Carol incorporates her passion for music into her instruction, and math songs are often emanating from her classroom. However, it is rule number 1, love your kids, that Carol truly excels at. Carol always wants the best for her special ed students and will tenuously advocate for them to get the services and support they need to be successful. Carol's students adore her, and she is the recipient of random enthusiastic hugs throughout the day. I teach the 3rd to 5th grade students that Carol has had in the past. They love to visit Mrs. Hengel. In fact, I had to put a rule in place myself that they were only allowed to stop by for a Mrs. Hengel hug on Fridays so that the other students did not interrupt the learning of others or miss out on their own instruction. On Fridays, I hear the joyous cries of, "It's Friday! We can hug you!" coming from next door. Carol makes a tremendous impact not only on her students, but also on the staff here at Kings Highway. She is a kind, generous, and loving soul, and her presence will be greatly missed here at Kings Highway. And from 2nd grade teachers, Peggy is one of the most dedicated, caring teachers we have ever met. She goes above and beyond for her students each year, and the connections that she has made with them is evident through the amount of visitors she has at her door before and after school. She never hesitates to take time to go to students' games or recitals. Peggy has the biggest heart of anyone we know. When people use the expression that someone would give you the shirt off their back, that's what we think of when we think of her. She not only makes sure that her students are cared for, but she is always there for her colleagues as well. Throughout her time in the Coatesville Area School District, she has worked as an aide and a teacher in various grade levels. Kings Highway is going to truly miss her, as will many of all the other children and staff members who have had the pleasure of working with her throughout the district. At this time, I would like to present to you two of our teachers who will be retiring this year, Ms. Carol Engel and Ms. Peggy Chantel. These words have definitely expressed the realness of who these ladies were. Those of you have retired, to spend time in a place that you love. It's always very difficult to say goodbye. We're not saying goodbye yet. You still have some days to go. All right? But I'm definitely extremely grateful to have wonderful, wonderful teachers working in my school, working in our school, who give effortlessly, who give so willingly to all of our students and to our staff. So thank you very much for everything that you do. Anytime we come to show our love to Mrs. Engel, Mrs. Peggy, ladies, thank you for your service to Coastal Area School District. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Hold on, Kings Highway people, hold on. On behalf of the board, we'd like to thank you for your presentations tonight, and Dr. Miles, thank you as always for your enthusiastic approach to what you do at Kings Highway. On behalf of the board, thank all of you. Okay, Dr. Van Voorn, moving on to a little more serious stuff. It looks like we have RBC Capital Markets, LLC. Would you like to introduce them, or Ms. Diefendorfer?
Sure. So we have joining us tonight Brian Bradley, Michael Lillis, and Daniel O'Brien to go over the financing options for our master facilities plan.
Principal really does it all, you know. This thing, is this okay? Lori, did you want to put up the
Yeah, could you bring up the presentation for us tonight, please? It's the PDF. Thank you.
And you could just flip it to page 3 there. Good, okay. Just as we get closer to, I'm sure you guys are a little tired of seeing us, but given obviously changes in the market and as the financing plan gets more fine-tuned, we thought it would be a good opportunity to discuss with the board the financing process in and of itself. I know some board members have been through a bond issue and some have not. So we thought it would be a good opportunity just to give a brief overview of the financing process, some of the participants and some of the terms, and finally an update on the impact of the proposed new money. We've received some more fine-tuned details and some deeper analysis from the architect with respect to cost and timing of the cost. So we were going to give an update. With that information, we were able to fine-tune our financing plan a little more, that we've gotten that deeper dive, so we wanted to give an update on that. With respect to the financing process, if you could just flip to page 3, I'll give a brief overview of the municipal bond market in general, and then we'll just touch on some credit aspects and some structuring aspects that the vast majority of school districts in Pennsylvania undertake. With respect to the municipal market in general, municipal bonds are by far the most efficient and common tool used by roughly the 50,000 issuers across the country who access capital for projects. To give you size and scope of the market, in 1965, the outstanding municipal bonds were about 20 million. In 1985, outstanding municipal bonds were about 300 billion. Today, outstanding municipal bonds are 4.1 trillion. The municipal bond market issued about 400 billion in 2022 alone. So by far, the market has grown, and by far, it is the most efficient tool for accessing capital. Simply stated, bonds are debt securities issued by borrowers like Coatesville to acquire funds. The bondholders are the lenders, and the borrowers, like Coatesville, agree to pay back that principal amount that was borrowed, plus a periodic interest payment. With the tax-exempt market, those interest payments are based on market rates and the underlying credit of the issuer, and those interest payments are paid on a semi-annual basis. Broker-dealers like RBC Capital Markets, we find those investors to loan issuers like Coatesville monies. To give you some indication of who RBC is in the market, we did about 500 transactions last year for roughly $25 billion. Currently, we're the #1 underwriter in Pennsylvania. We typically are on an annual basis, and currently we're the #1 underwriter in the country. So we have deep relationships with those investors. With respect to those investors, there's 8 primary sources. It's households, it's mom and pop, who buy bonds for their own personal portfolio. And then the second largest are mutual funds and banks. They comprise about 70% of the entire investor market. Page 4, if you don't mind, sorry. Wish I had a clicker. So for projects of the size and scope like Coatesville is considering, bonds are really the only source of funding, and again, by far the most efficient. The other alternative really in the municipal market is direct private lending from a bank. Banks are very limited to term, size, and credit rating, and those limitations change based on the market. Currently, most banks, there's no question, there's some capital difficulty at some banks, so lending is pretty squeezed. Banks in the current market won't go out longer than 12 years. Their limit on size is about 25 million, and their limit on rating is roughly a AA minus. Bonds, on the other hand, are sold in the public market. They could be structured from anywhere to 1 to 40 years. Believe it or not, there are some issuers, Ohio State comes to mind, some well-established institutions that issue what's called century bonds. So they'll go out and borrow and find investors for a 100-year horizon, believe it or not. There was probably a couple years ago when interest rates low, it was a pretty common practice by some higher education institutions. Bonds are very different. They're sold individually by year of maturity to various investors like the households, the banks, and the mutual funds that I previously had referred to. Each maturity in and of itself has a separate interest rate and price. You could think of it, if you were to structure your bond issue over 30 years, each individual principal payment is theoretically auctioned off to investors. It is a public market instead of a direct lending from a bank. It's a much more efficient way to raise capital. Lastly, as the district is aware with some of your existing debt, the terms and provisions in a public bond issue are much, much less onerous than in a private lending. With a public market bond issue, you have the right to call your bonds at any time. In private lending, there's typically more onerous terms. If you get direct lending from one institution, they have what's called make-whole provisions, they have downgrade triggers, and they have put features. Instead of with a bond issue, you have the right to call your bonds at any time to refinance them. With a private direct lending, the bank could actually come to you and say, based on triggers that are reached in an indenture, they can come to you and say, we want all our money back. So from a security perspective, from a cost perspective, and from an efficiency perspective, the bond market is really, quite frankly, the best alternative. Page 5, I am not going to read every bullet, I promise, but these are some of the, oh, I didn't correct the, it's R-O-L-E-S, I know how to spell. I'll point that mistake out. So some of the participants, first and foremost, is obviously the issuer. The issuer defines needs, establishes a debt management policy, and just looking from left to right, there's the underwriter. There's Michael, Dan, and I on the banking side. We're tasked with designing the financing plan and offering alternatives. We prepare bond documents, rating agency strategy, bond insurance bids, run numbers, and then more importantly, and behind the scenes behind us, is our sales and trading desk. They're responsible for the sale and distribution of the bonds, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say they're a very, very important, although they're not here, they're not the front-facing, they are a very, very important aspect of the financing. They're the group within our firm who goes out and find lenders. And as I alluded to earlier, we have very deep relationships given the volume we do on an annual basis. On the bottom left there, credit enhancer, that is a third party. There used to be about 10 bond insurers, roughly, AAA rated. They were pretty much all eviscerated in 2008. There are 2 bond insurers currently, Build America Mutual and Assured Guarantee. Given the underlying rating of the district, and depending on cost, it is highly probable that we'll procure bond insurance for any proposed financing. Issuers Council, that's your solicitor, your daily legal advice. Rating agency, again, that's another third party. It's an independent assessment of your credit rating. You could think of it like your credit score, quite simply. Just so the Underwriters Council, they provide legal advice to the broker-dealer, in this case, RBC. Architect, obviously Schrader, you have them engaged. They design and provide cost estimates for any proposed project. And then bond counsel, I'm not going to read every bullet, but they quite simply make sure that the financing in and of itself complies with both state and federal law. They have a very important role to make sure none of us get in trouble or run afoul of the law, and that's pretty much their primary role, along with helping draft documents. With that, I was going to turn it over to Mike to go over some of these other pages, and then I will go into an update on the financing.
Thank you, Brian. So I'm Michael Lillies. So the next thing we wanted to talk to you about is structuring or structural options for financing. As Brian mentioned a little while ago, that our job as bankers is to help you design the financing that best fits your goals. And there's three major types of debt service or payment structures that we utilize. The first one is a level debt service. And I think of that as similar to your mortgage, where you pay the same payments every month, which result in the same amount of payments every year. With a bond issue, you're structuring so you're paying approximately the same amount of payments every year. If you look over to the far right, that bar graph, we're illustrating here what level debt service payment structure would look like if, as the district has some existing debt. So if you look at those brown bars, that represents approximately $675,000 of annual payments over 30 years. And in this particular case, the bonds are issued in 2016, and the first payments start in 2017. Now, you can see if you go in 2017, and remembering that each brown bar has the same amount of payments, because your existing debt is there, your total payment goes up higher than your annual payment. Then in, I guess, 2018, is that the right year? 2018, you can see your total payments go up even higher, because that's the last year of your existing debt. And then after that, you have no remaining of the prior existing debt, and the payments are all level after that. One of the disadvantages of a structure like this is that as you can see in the early years, if you have existing debt, like the district does, your total payments go up, and then they come back down again. I mean, you would rather not, I think in many cases, not have to raise the mills, temporarily for a year and then drop them back down again. So this is a structure that is, it's used sometimes, but I'd have to say, based on our experience, the wraparound structure, which we're going to show you next, seems to be the most desirable. And the reason is that if you look at that graph again, you can see that the debt service, again, is this 30 years of debt service, which goes into effect in 2017. If you look at the top of these individual bars, they're all at the same level. So what we've done with this structure is we've minimized the payments in these early years, so you don't have to raise taxes, higher temporarily. So what we've done is we've just made your total debt service the same level. And what this also tends to do is minimize the budget impact to the district, and that's why many, many school districts use this structure. The third structure we're looking at is something we call it phase-in of debt service. You can actually use that with either a level debt service or the wraparound, but most often it's used with the wraparound. And you can see, looking at this particular bar graph, starting in 17, you can see the district's total payments go up incrementally over 3 years until it hits, and what year is that? In 2019, that all your payments are level. And many of you have been through finances with us before and are familiar with what we're helping the district plan for now. We're using this phase-in technique, so it makes it easier impact on the taxpayers. You don't have to raise taxes all of a sudden. And Brian will show you, when he talks about the current financing plan, you'll see that we're phasing in debt service over 8 years, which again has helped to make it a little bit more manageable for taxpayers. We turn to the next slide, the financing process and schedule. So I'm going to just kind of quickly walk you through the schedule on the right. This is, I would say, like a typical or general timetable for school district financing, and you can see it's about 10 weeks. It could be a little bit shorter, it could be a little longer, but this schedule starts at the point where the district says, all right, we know what our financing plan is, we know how many issues we want to issue over time, let's start the whole process to go out in the market and sell bonds. So during these, the first 2 weeks, basically what we're doing is getting information from the school district that we need to put in a preliminary official statement. And that preliminary official statement is a document. It's about 55, 60 pages, plus your most recent audit. And what that does is it gives potential investors, those investors who are going to lend you money, it gives them the kind of information they need to make a decision on whether or not they want to buy your bonds. And included in, when we go out to market the bonds and we finalize this preliminary official statement, we'll also include the bond rating and if you have any credit enhancements such as bond insurance. So yeah, the first 2 weeks, we put this the initial version of the preliminary official statement together, and then we mail it to the insurance company and, to the rating agency, and probably in the district's case to the insurance companies. Then let's talk about weeks 4, 5, and 6. So during that time, we schedule a rating call with the district, and Lori's been on a few of those now. And that's part of the process that the rating agency goes through to assign a rating. They use that interview, I'll call it, as well as the preliminary official statement draft that they get. And it's typically they like to see 3 years of your past audits and a budget. And then during these 3 weeks, when this preliminary official statement is finalized, we send that out to investors, and we have the rating at that time. So that's when we're trying to pre-market the issue, try to get investors interested in buying the district bonds. And then it kind of culminates in what we're calling week 7, where the first bullet point is price the bond issue. What that means is we're going out in the market and we're obtaining interest rates for each of the maturity of the district's bonds. And it happens in one day, and at the end of the day, the rates are locked in and the principal payments are locked in, and the financing is all set. And all that's left is to make the final preparations to get to closing, which we're saying here typically occurs around week 10, give or take a week, lesser or greater than that. So that's, like a brief rundown on what our whole process is. Once you decide, let's start the process of going out and marketing the bonds. This next slide, the rating agency process, we just referenced that a little bit. What the rating report or opinion is basically an opinion. It's a third-party independent opinion to assign a rating which says to the investors, here's what their creditworthiness is. And if you look at the chart at the right, these are the 3 most frequent rating agencies that are used for municipal bond issues. For Pennsylvania school districts, it's typically either Moody's or Standard & Poor's S&P or both. Fitch tends to be used by big issuers like the City of Philadelphia, the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, because their issues are so much larger, several $100 million typically, and there's a bigger investment pool, and they want to have this extra rating to try and make the bonds as attractive as possible. So in this diagram on the right, you can see that each of the rating agencies has various ratings that they assign. The top rating is AAA for each of them, and you can go all the way down to the lowest ratings, either a C or a D. Now, we've circled the district's rating in the Moody's category of B1, and the district's rating had been higher than that, but as you probably know, it's had some difficult financial challenges, but as of this last audit, things are starting to turn around, and we're hoping that the rating might improve. And with that being said, we turn to the next page, credit enhancement. So as Brian had mentioned, the most typical kind of credit enhancement, as the name implies, you're enhancing your rating. You're getting a third party you want to use their rating, which would be higher than your rating, to make the bonds more attractive. Brian mentioned there's only 2 remaining now, Assured Guarantee and Build American Mutual, or BAM. And in fact, on the issues we worked on for the school district, we've used each of these bond insurers, and we were going to be going to each of them again for the district's issue. So the question with bond insurance always is, when do we need to use it? And essentially what you do is you buy it, and you pay upfront a premium like you would for your auto insurance or your homeowner's insurance. And the way you decide whether or not that insurance, it makes sense to pay that premium, which you're going to have to include in your bond issue. It raises the size of the bond issue. You know, what do we do to determine whether or not it's cost effective? So basically what you do, we get a quote on a fee from each insurer, and that fee we incorporate and we model up a bond issue, and then we compare that to, and what we do is we assign estimated rates based on that rating. And these 2 insurers, the highest rating that each have is with Standard & Poor's at AA. You know, the next highest category is AAA, so it's a very good rating. And so then what we do is we also estimate what the rates would be without the bond insurance, and which would and because you're not having to pay a bond insurance premium, your bond issue is smaller. So then what we do is we say, all right, we have the 2 different size bond issues. We have the lower rates on the larger bond issue and the higher rates on the smaller issue. And we say which one is lower. And it's as simple as that. And in the last several issues we've done for the school district, and so the debt service has always been lower after we've included the payment of the bond insurance premium. And we anticipate that's going to be the case now. Typically, it makes sense to buy bond insurance if you're in a single A category or below that. Once you get into a double A category, it's usually not cost effective. So with that, I'll give it back to Brian.
Yeah, if you
want to
if you want to skip over to page 11, the taxpayer impact of new money, again, I alluded to earlier, the architect has provided a little more in-depth detail. So we're able, every time we come here, you know, the ultimate goal is as more information reveals itself, we try to drill it down based on current market rates. The other thing I like to do is the pages that I included in here, they're uniform. They look exactly like the other pages that you've seen. So as we go through the process, you can pull out those old presentations and kind of take a look and compare. And if there's any questions you have as we move through it, it's just an easier tool to ask those questions. So page 11, that's provided by the Schrader Group. It just gives an update on the entire scope of the project, about $255 million, and a broad overview of the timing from May of 2023 to January. Well, actually, it goes a little past that. It's based on his monthly draws. It's about July of 2029. Page 12. So what the architect was able to do for us is to provide a monthly draw through completion of the project in July of 2029. And one of the alternatives that we had talked about were 3 separate bond issues to fund the project. And with those monthly draws, what we're able to do is drill down on the timing of when monies are needed. And therefore, I can run my analysis instead of on a hypothetical based on when monies are actually going to be needed based on that architect's spend down. So real simply on this page here, and I highlighted them in orange or yellow there, orange, the first funding would occur in roughly August of 2023 for $85 million. You could see I utilize, based on the drawdown, all those funds are exhausted by January of 2025, wherein I need to recapitalize the bond proceed. I need to recapitalize the funds for projects again. And then again, that same process occurs. All that money is drawn down, plus interest earnings on that money. And we need to recapitalize again in May of 2026. Those 3 bond issues will provide funds, plus interest earnings thereon, will provide funds for the entire $255 million project. Page 13, again, should look very, very familiar. Last time we were here, I didn't phase in the mills in terms of equal annual installments, only because I didn't have that monthly drawdown. But with this monthly drawdown, I now know my timing, and therefore I can phase it in equal installments. So I circled in green there kind of the takeaways from the pages. So column 2 is your current debt service. 3, 4, and 5 are the bond issues that I discussed on the prior page and the timing of those bond issues. In order to phase it in, I've used capitalized interest to arrive at what's shown in column 7. In column 7, you could see there the impact on an annual basis is about $1.8 million per year over 8 years, starting in 2024 through and including 2031. Column 10 is the other real takeaway from this page. You can see the annual millage impact is 0.6 mils per year for those 8 years, for a total of roughly 4.8 mils in the aggregate. All the estimates here are based on current market rates, and it also includes estimated interest earnings in the construction fund based on the drawdown. Just to give you an indication, roughly based on current rates, interest earnings in the construction fund account is about $7.6 million. So that's all included and net of these numbers. Page 14, we've shown you the median taxpayer impact. On an annual basis, you can see it's approximately $73, $74 per year. It's the second column over there under the heading median taxpayer. And then we've also broken it out into different assessed valuations in $100,000 increments. So $100,000 assessed valuation, the impact is roughly $60 on an annual basis. For the $200,000 assessed value, it's roughly $120, and the $300,000 assessed value, it's approximately $180 from an impact basis, based on those 0.6 mils. I know that's a lot. And again, we've tried to keep it uniform with respect to the format. I know you've seen it before. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, I have one question. Are these interest rates fixed?
They are.
They are?
They are fixed for the life.
Because I was wondering how you could estimate the cost without a fixed interest.
So it's based on current rates. There's bond issues that are sold in the market every day. In fact, we underwrote a transaction for Haverford School District today. So based on live rates for comparable transactions, that's how we're able to establish the estimated fixed rates. They're not locked in. You are correct, they are estimated, but they're based on current rates. If you were to price the bond issue today, this is what your debt service would look like.
The other question is, we have about 5 or 6 municipalities, Coatesville distress, Modina's distress, and a few others, and there's something called tax credits. And these tax credits, if you went after them, would sort of put a buffer between this debt and my taxpayers. Have you considered that?
Tax credit, well, for the municipal, I mean, the tax credit, you're talking about the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act? Is that what you're referring to?
I'm saying that, is it possible for us to even look for tax credits in this, in a situation like this, or is this project off the board for tax credits?
No, there's nothing with respect to school, unless you're talking about doing an energy type project, like buying electric vehicle buses, anything that falls in the Inflation Reduction Act arena. Yes, there would be, but for the projects that you're talking about, there isn't. You know, the one thing that maybe I didn't mention earlier with respect to general characteristics of municipal bonds, there already is a tax credit there in effect because they're tax exempt bonds. So they carry lower interest rates than taxable bonds. Obviously, the school district is a tax-exempt entity. But with respect to what you're talking about, there's no real tax credit program for the type of projects you're talking about.
Okay, even with federal money like this that you're getting, you're telling me we can't get tax credit? Okay.
I mean, depending, when we drill down, depending on what the projects are with respect to, so the Inflation Reduction Act has been passed, but there's no money really, the money hasn't been established yet. The only thing that's included in there thus far that would be applicable to the district is, quite frankly, any sort of EV type
I just want you to
buses,
be sure it
vehicles.
means a lot to my tax credit,
Yeah.
taxpayers. And I don't want to see something go away and you say, hey, guys, we're going to have to raise the taxes again.
No,
You
I agree.
already indicated that it'll probably be a mill raise. So if you're not sure about something like this, and with the amount of money we're talking about, that could really affect the taxpayers in this region, and the board would get the blame, and we don't want that.
Yeah, so we can take a deeper dive in the Inflation Reduction Act, but with any monies you're going to spend that really is energy efficiency type stuff, we could look into things like that, but in the broader sense, the vast majority of it, no, there's nothing applicable in the tax credit space.
Okay. I just hate to see these carpetbaggers who are coming in our town getting tax credits and the school district can't. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it depends on, we could so the deep dive that we've taken in with respect to the projects right now are those monthly draws that I alluded to, but the actual where dollars are going and to what, if there's anything in the energy efficiency realm, that might be a possibility that we could look into. That's a great point.
Will you?
Yes, absolutely, sir.
Thank you.
Good evening, gentlemen. I want to hold on slide 14, which I believe is up on the screen right now. So I understand that this is the assessed valuation. However, what term repayment is this based off of? So where we come up with the anticipated impact annually per taxpayer, what is that based off of from a repayment term? Is it 15 years? Is it 20 years? Because it's I'm just making an assumption here that 2023 to 2032 that's currently up on the projector, that's just a sample size for that dedicated period of time. But what would the district's repayment term? So if we did 30 years, obviously that's going to be impacted in a more positive way in an immediate out-of-pocket monthly versus 20 years.
It would be, that's great. So what we did was, and I should have alluded, as we get in front of the board more and more, I get a little ahead of myself, and I should have alluded to, we did the wrap structure with the phase-in. It's the same structure that we've been showing. So we can go out longer, but so where we're at now with the wrap and the phase-in, it's about 17-year amortization. And the reason why we've done that short, tight wrap is because your overall debt service would be much lower, and with the phase-in, your impact on an annual basis will be lower. If we stretch it out longer, obviously you'll be paying those bonds over a longer term. Your impact would be higher.
Sure.
So.
No, that makes sense.
So we did it as short as possible to lower the impact and lower the overall interest cost.
Okay, understood.
Thank you, and I apologize. I should have mentioned that.
That's quite all right. Appreciate it. So I want to kind of dial it back to our Moody rating. I think it speaks for itself, what our Moody rating is. But can you explain to us sitting up on here, as well as to our community, what are the negative impacts of borrowing as a high liability borrower? So in this bond structure, or this bond program, we would be considered a high liability borrower, right? Based off of what that Moody's, I'm going to go off Moody's, that's what we use, so I'm going to use Moody's. What is the negative impact of doing that versus us waiting, I'm just going to throw a theoretical out there, 5 years, right? We're on a better financial trajectory going forward. We get a better situation. It's kind of like when you have credit card debt and you've got $20,000 worth of credit card debt. You can't repay. You're making minimum payments. You're not going anywhere. Running on a treadmill, so to speak, right? But then you get a better job. Your income's doubled. And now your plan is over the next 3 years to clear out that debt on that credit card and then buy a new vehicle, as opposed to buying a new vehicle while you have that $20,000. Your debt-to-income ratio is negatively impacted, so on and so forth. So what would be the detractor of us waiting a couple years, getting a better Moody's rating, assumingly, and being a less liability lender? Or is there really no substantiated value in doing that?
I'm not in the habit of predicting the future, so I don't know what your credit rating is going to look like in 5 years. And more importantly, the biggest risk you have is interest rate risk.
Sure.
I don't know where interest rates are going to be in 5 years, and quite frankly, no one does. What I will say, what I will say with respect to the rating, you are a B1 now. That's absolutely correct, and it's a low rating. 2 points. Rating agencies are very quick to downgrade you. They're not as quick to upgrade you.
Sure.
So just because you had a fantastic past fiscal year, kudos to the administration and the board. I don't think it's going to lead to an upgrade. What you need is 3 years of trends of that for them to turn around and provide an upgrade. The other thing with respect to your underlying rating, part of that rating is institutional framework, and Pennsylvania has the state intercept program with respect to debt. So that gets you an A category rating based on the institutional framework. So you're already at that level, and that's why, quite frankly, the bond insurers participate. If you didn't have the state intercept program, it's highly improbable that the bond insurers, God bless you, would participate. So with respect to waiting 5 years, unless you're going to get north of that A rating, it's probably not going to mean much, quite frankly, with the intercept there.
That's what I was looking for.
Okay.
It's kind of one of those situations where we could be in a worse situation 5 years from now, so take advantage of an opportunity while it's there. So,
and again, I don't know where the market's going to be in 5 years either.
I mean, if you could predict that would be great. You probably wouldn't be sitting in front of us,
Yeah,
but that'd be fantastic.
I like everyone here, but I probably wouldn't.
My last question, and it's on the bond insurance, because that is something that's kind of uncharted territory from my knowledge base. So it mentioned that upfront premium that's associated with the bond insurance. What determines that premium, and what determines your cost for that bond insurance?
So that premium is, quite frankly, determined on market conditions. The bond insurers are very astute. They participate in the secondary market with respect to insuring. They know bond prices. So they are going to provide a premium where you are incentivized to use their bond insurance. So they know where a B1 standalone would price, and they know where a bond issue based on their price would, what interest rates it would garner in the market, and they basically give you incentive in terms of savings with respect to utilizing their insurance. I mean, it's really, I hate to drill it down as simplistic as that, but that's what it is. They're looking to insure you because they want to make money on insuring bonds, and they want to incentivize you by providing that insurance and giving you overall economic savings on the entire transaction, so you are compelled to use that bond insurance. And as we go through that, so when we get those bids, we actually provide Lori and her team with a bond insurance analysis, where rates would be uninsured, where rates would be insured. Here's what the cost of the insurance is. Here's to the penny what you're saving.
Gentlemen, on page 14, the numbers are self-explanatory, the dollars and cents. Just a confirmation on page 13, 0.6% increase per year, I believe is what I heard, for a total of 4.8 over the duration. As far as our taxpayers' increases?
0.6 mils per year for a total of four. Yes, sir, over 8 years.
Yeah, I said the numbers, dollars and cents speak for themselves. I'm talking about millage, 0.6 per year, 4.8 over the duration.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to clarify on that. That's just debt service related. So that is just impacting the debt service.
I understand. Yep.
Mr. President, can I ask one more question?
Please do.
When you're getting ready to spend $255 million, $250 million in our area, there's something called a feedback. And that feedback is something you do with the citizens instead of bringing outside contractors, outside sellers, all this stuff without coming to Coatesville or the area and seeing what we have to offer. Then you're not doing my taxpayers a service. And I suggest you do that. Because if we're going to spend $250 million of taxpayers' money, some of the people who are paying the taxes for this, they're going to see the benefits or it ain't going to be no deal. Okay.
Any other questions? Gentlemen, once again, thank you.
Thank you, and
Very
if,
much.
if any questions do develop, just pass them on to Lori, and we'd be more than happy to answer anything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 8C, 2023-2024 School District Budget Update. Ms. Tiefendorfer.
Thank you. Good evening, school board directors and community members. Tonight, I will be providing an update on our preliminary budget for 23-24 school year. So we have shared many times what our roadmap has been to develop our budget, and we are currently looking at our revenues and expenses before making any final recommendation to the board on balancing our budget for final adoption in June. So what you see here are our preliminary can you guys bring that up for, I'm sorry. I thought it was up. Can you go ahead on to slide number 3, please? Thank you. So what you see here are preliminary expense projections for 23-24. We're showing salaries and benefits at $73.3 million, our purchase services at $114.3 million, supplies at $7.7 million, property at $3.6 million, our other objects at $7.3 million, and our debt service at $13.3 million. So currently our total projected expenditures is $219.9 million. We will be thoroughly looking at each category to see where we will end before we adopt our final budget in June. Next slide, please. So next is our our preliminary revenue projections. So we have our local revenue source at $139.3 million, and that is before any millage rate increases. That has gone up a little bit since our last meeting at the beginning of the month, just looking at different categories and making adjustments based on trends that we were seeing. Next is our state sources at $59.5 million, and our federal sources at $13.7 for a total revenue of $212.7 million. So we are currently seeing a $7.2 million gap in our budget that we will need to figure out how we're going to close for final adoption in June. We will look at all areas that we can possibly look at before making a final recommendation to the board. We're looking to probably use some of our current fund balance and then, of course, some millage rate increases. Next slide, please. So this is a look at our current millage rate. It's at 41.219. And we know based on our adjusted Act 1 index that we could go as high as 5.3%. And as I've mentioned, we are going to continue to review our revenues and expenditures for 23-24. We will explore all of our options related to the master facility plan and incorporate that as well. And I know there's going to be some tough decisions that we'll need to make in regards to our millage rate to support balancing our budget and our future facilities planning. Next slide, please. So what you see here is our budget timeline reflecting upcoming key dates. Tonight, the board will adopt our preliminary budget. Again, these are preliminary numbers, and we will continue to work on balancing the budget for the final adoption on June 13th. Next is May 24th. Our final budget will be available for inspection, which is 20 days before our adoption. And on June 2nd, there will be public notice of intent to adopt our final budget, which is 10 days before adopting. And then finally, we will be adopting our final budget on June 13th. Any questions in regards to our preliminary budget?
Ms. Stevens, not a question, just once again, a clarification. I think it's important that the public understand that tonight's vote is for a preliminary budget. And could you repeat again the number of the gap that we currently have?
Yes, it's 7.2 million at this time.
All right, so we still have work to do
We do.
in a little over a month's time.
That's correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Ms. Stevens, another clarification. Where are we with our fund balance?
So if you were to look at our fund balance, it's a snapshot in time. So if I were to look at it as of today, we're at about 34.6 million.
34.6 million.
Yes.
And at one point in time, what was that fund balance?
Well, it varies throughout the year because, like I said, it's a snapshot in time. So when we ended in June, we were at 15.9 million, around that amount.
Yes, understand that. So that's our rainy day fund, so to speak.
Yes.
So we're leaving that aside and using it for bigger and better things, I would assume, correct?
Yeah, and we, keep in mind we have 2 months left to go in this school year, so that amount will continue to go up and down.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. Diefenderfer.
Sure, thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 9A, adoption of consent agenda. Recommended motion that the Board of School Directors approve the consent agenda items. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Committee meeting action items considered routine will be enacted under one motion unless removed for separate action upon board request. The purpose of the consolidated motion is to expedite governing board action on all consent items which are not held for discussion. Items that have been held for discussion by the governing board will be enacted upon at the time the item is discussed. This evening, I would like to remove from consent agenda the following agenda items. Under number 10, finance, I would like to remove letter A, financial statements. Letter B, approval of the 23-24 Chester County Intermediate Unit Core Services budget. C, approval of the 23-24 Chester County Intermediate Unit Occupational Education budget. D, preliminary budget adoption and notice of special meeting. And K, human resources report. So once again, that is A, B, C, D, and K. Under number 11, education, I would like to remove the following agenda item. That would be agenda item A, legal services consultation agreement with Sweet, Stevens, Katz, and Williams, LLP. So again, under education, that is just agenda item A. To my colleagues, are there any other agenda items to be removed from consent this evening? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, would you call for the vote, please?
Holly Charez?
Yes.
Rob Fisher?
Yes.
Harvell Brown?
Yes.
Andrew Finkbeiner?
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris?
Yes.
Jennifer Schott?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Mr. Finkbeiner, would you lead us through the Finance Committee agenda items pulled from consent?
Sure thing. Letter A, financial statements. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the financial statements bills payables list as presented. Do we have a motion? Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote, please.
Andrew Finkbeiner?
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris? Harvell Brown?
Yes.
Holly Charez?
Yes.
Rob Fisher?
Yes.
Jennifer Schott?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Letter B, approval of 2023-2024 Chester County Intermediate Unit Core Services budget. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the 2023-2024 Chester County Intermediate Unit Core Services budget in the amount of $34,720,570, of which the Coatesville Area School District's projected contribution is $47,254 as presented. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Finkbeiner, I'll cover all three of these at the same time. I removed letters B, C, and D for the appropriate roll call vote.
Noted. Thank you. We'll call for a vote, please.
Mary Ann Harris?
Yes.
Andrew Finkbeiner?
Yes.
Harvell Brown?
Yes.
Jennifer Schott?
Yes.
Holly Charez?
Yes.
Rob Fisher?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Letter C, approval of the 2023-2024 Chester County Intermediate unit occupational education budget. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the 2023-2024 Chester County Intermediate Unit Occupational Education budget in the amount of $31,574,393, of which the Coatesville Area School District's contribution is $3,198,020, as presented. Do we have a motion?
Second.
All right, as President Fisher alluded to, the reason for this removal, does anybody else have any comments or questions?
Mr. Finkbonner, again, these are services that are provided for our district students, and that is based on a 3-year average.
We'll call for a vote, please.
Rob Fisher?
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner?
Yes.
Jennifer Schott?
Yes.
Harvell Brown? Holly Charest?
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris?
Yes.
Motion approved.
Letter D, preliminary budget adoption and notice of special meeting. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the resolution adopting the preliminary budget for the 2023-2024 fiscal year and the notice of special meeting for June 13, 2023, in accordance with Act 1 of 2006 as presented. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote.
Holly Charest?
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris?
Yes.
Jennifer Schott?
Yes.
Rob Fisher?
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner?
Yes.
Harvell Brown? Motion approved.
Letter K, Human Resources Report. Recommended action that the Board of School Directors approve the resignations, appointments, new positions, leave of absence, transfers, change of status, and corrections as presented. Do we have a motion?
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Finkbonner, if I may, this evening it is with regret that the board will accept the retirement of Miss Mia Waters. Ms. Waters is a special education teacher in our district for the past 31 years. I had the privilege of spending time and working alongside of Ms. Waters way back in the original alternative education program, and she currently serves as an instructor in our cyber program. So it is without saying that the board would like to wish Ms. Waters the very best in her retirement, and we wish her a long, happy, and healthy retirement. Thank you.
Thank you, President Fisher. We'll call for a vote, please.
Jennifer Schott?
Yes.
Holly Charest?
Yes.
Rob Fisher?
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner?
Yes.
Harvell Brown?
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris? Motion approved.
Moving on to Education Committee, Agenda Item A. Recommended motion that the Board of School Directors approve the legal services consultation agreement for the 2023-24 school year with Sweet, Stevens, Katz, and Williams, LLP, at a cost of $6,500 as presented. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any questions or comments? Once again, this is for the purpose of a roll call vote. Ms. Stevens, ever call the roll, or call the roll vote, please? Excuse me.
Harvell Brown?
Yes.
Andrew Finkbonner?
Yes.
Jennifer Schott?
Yes.
Mary Ann Harris? Holly Charest?
Yes.
Rob Fisher?
Yes.
Motion approved.
And I believe that takes care of all the agenda items removed from consent this evening. Moving on to Agenda Item 14A, Public Comment. The Board has requested that all persons making comments of public concern to list their name, address, telephone number, and topics on the sheet provided. There is a 3-minute time limit per person. Ms. Shannon Bailey.
Good evening. Excuse me. I'd like to acknowledge Board Member Mary Harris for getting back to me promptly each time I ask her a question. Most of you don't, and that's fine, because I'm not here because I want to be a board member. I don't. I'm here because I passionately care about this community, and I think the questions that I ask is for the greater good of the community. I reached out to 3 of you week before last regarding the special education training, which I was here, and it was advertised that it was here at 6 p.m. in a large group room. And I asked if someone could please tell me if the training was scheduled at 6 o'clock as scheduled. And Ms. Harris was the only person that said she did not know anything about it. So I waited around and was given some information that an email went out the same day saying that the training was going to be on Zoom. And I was able to get the link. There were 7 families on that special education training. And so I've talked about this concern many times, and again, I don't understand why the district seems to be reluctant to get this training out to families who need this information. I've worked with a lot of families who could have benefited from this training. It just seems to be a problem, and it's very, very concerning, and it's very, very disappointing. Again, Board Member Harris, thank you for always being proactive and giving me information that you have. Some of you have gotten me information, but for the most part, it seems to be a hardship. Communication is important. Again, I'm not here because I want to be a board member. I don't. There used to be town hall meetings when Kathy Tasher was our board member, well, our superintendent. I would encourage you all to talk to the community. We care passionately about this community. Consider having town hall meetings. Consider having listening circles. We have ideas. We want to be engaged. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shannon Bailey. Are there any additional board members' reports this evening? Any informational items? Seeing none, I will ask for a motion for adjournment. We will adjourn at 7:34. He's different. He's a different. CERN